Hi, Dave Richard.
Hey,
Nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, have we met before?
No, I don't think so.
It's been a long time.
It's been a couple months.
Yeah.
Is Henry not coming today?
No, he's in Georgia. He won't be.
Okay. Gotcha. No wonder everybody's snarling.
No control. It's okay if everyone's just going.
Yep.
This
Young
one?
lady wanna come in.
Where's it?
Let's see.
Is she in the front door? I'm
She right here. How you doing? Yeah, sorry, hello. Hi. How you guys doing?
So you're soliciting, huh?
No. But yeah.
Just some stuff I picked up at the conference and
Oh, good.
just reading on my own in the time stuff.
All my free time.
Yeah.
How was that?
Oh, okay.
Like during the summer.
Man, me too. I can handle it for a minute, but not. At least it just came from somewhere warm, right? So.
They need to, because we want to put it on the agenda, so they need to do that 48 hours before we put it on the agenda. Ma'am, do you have a question about public housing or section?
Yeah, I have a question about the parking lot. Now, I came home from work, and they putting a boot on my car, coming out of double park. But the park I was parked in is a park where ain't nobody gonna park there because the snowbank is there.
What property are you at?
Eastwood.
Okay, give me, can you stay around? So Maria's the director of public housing, so she's the person that's over all the property, so she'll speak with you about that real quick.
But that's for, they, 48 hours in advance, they
Yeah.
call the office or?
They can call, email, Howard, go Facebook as well, they want to contact us, any of those ways is fine.
Okay. Cause I think this happened last night, right? So that was the review. It just happened
Okay.
less than 24 hours.
Yeah, and that's. Mhm. Yeah, we have a contract, we used to actually do towing. There was a few issues with the towing company, so we switched to a boot contract. So they have an opportunity to get the boot off, I think it costs like $100 and some $100. In a lot of situations, we found that it was something that maybe wasn't clear, we'll just deal with it and have them take it off, so. I have one more thing for you to, we're just switching the mic cameras. We're just kind of separate from
Really not. Where do you live?
Over, off of Fine.
Second one. No worries, sir.
What up?
Hi, sir. How are you doing? Good. You guys are dodging the snow right now. Iced up your windshield kind of thing?
What was that time I came back, there was some more snow yesterday. Now he's gonna accuse me of.
See, the video call is.
Who won the thing yesterday? Do we know that?
Yeah, the alderman,
Yeah.
Carl and, Steve Solars.
On it goes.
Which board was
Next.
that?
Fifth ward. It was the only one I think had anything yesterday.
Yeah.
That's just.
What was the turnout? Did they
Oh,
say?
yeah.
Did you read like what the turnout was or anything?
Yeah, it was awful.
I can
8%.
So what, that's 500 people or something?
No, there was like 11,000 registered voters and
Okay.
815 people voted.
Wow. I talked to Carl the other day at this thing, and he said that, yeah, he was hoping that there'd be 1,000, but he was figuring it'd be less. So.
Anyone want water?
I can take a look, please. Is this my cabinet?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Commissioner Wayne?
I'm
Oh, you good?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting,
Was it?
heard on how you're gonna count them about those who are referendums, people are gonna ask you.
Yeah. I was at a meeting about that yesterday. We had a meeting with the realtors for that, and they need to work on the presentation a little bit more. But yeah, Dr. Craig. And there's one thing that he like wasn't understanding that I thought was really important. And, go ahead. Don't mind me. It was just about the fact that he was trying to say that like they weren't increasing the debt amount because the amount per year wasn't going up. And I said, well, but it was. So I'm like, you're gonna have a hard time if you're gonna continue with that line.
I'm gonna call the meeting, regular meeting Wednesday, February 25th, 2015, to order. Roll call.
Henry Champion,
Chairman Champion is out on a family matter. He's in Georgia, so he will not be with us today.
Melanie Woodley,
here.
Ray Cruz,
Commissioner Cruz just sent me a text message. He's running a little behind. I don't think he'll be making it today either.
Scott Morris,
Here.
Dave Richard,
Here.
Bill Powell.
Present. Reading of mission statement.
As you will recall, to my fault last month, Chairman did request that we read the mission statement. I think the purpose being, I think it's important that we just, I think it's for us as a staff, and I think for the board as well, that we're kind of reminded of the purpose that we're here. So we actually had it framed and placed on the wall, so I will read it. Very long from reading now.
You guys go that far?
Yeah, they do, just barely, but they do. It is the mission of the Aurora Housing Authority to promote the original philosophy of public housing as a temporary helping hand by providing housing assistance to those in need with understanding, respect, and professionalism. The primary focus of our mission is to provide and maintain quality, affordable housing with a safe, stable environment while promoting educational, employment, economic development, and self-sufficiency opportunities for the residents we serve to enhance and improve their lives and provide them with an opportunity to break the cycle of poverty, strive towards upward mobility and independent lifestyles. And I think really, what for us, for me as an executive director, the takeaway from that is that at the end of the day, what we do is for the residents. I mean, it's a job for a lot of us. It's our career, but at the same time, our jobs and our careers aren't really about making money like they are in the private sector. These positions really are about the people that we help and the people that we can help. So it's just kind of a nice reminder that we are rooted in helping families. So
I think that's good.
Need a motion for the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, January 28th, 2015.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion been made second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Being none, we'll move on to public comments on agenda items. There are none. In that case, we'll move to the review of financial reports and list of bills.
So for the month of January, the Housing Authority had a $20,000 net profit. That'll decrease our year-to-date net loss to about $462,000. We look at it programmatically. It's kind of the same story. Public housing program profitable up to $158,000 or $644,000 year-to-date. Section 8 program normally doesn't have a loss operationally during the month. This month was a little bit different. We just had a few extra things that were one-time events that kind of pushed the program into a loss for the month. It was like a $27,000 net loss. Year-to-date, they're about $267,000 net loss. That's obviously related to the cutbacks from HUD. The central central office cost center had a $110,000 net loss and is at 832 for the year. As we spoke last month, those are basically the overhead expenses that we spread out to the property. So, we're gonna, like I said before, we're gonna end the year this year with a loss. That's kind of the unfortunate side effect of the cuts that HUD kind of put on us. But all things considered, I think we still had a strong year operationally. I mean, the cuts really affected us in our Section 8 program. We had reserves, and that was the real purpose of the reserves, was to kind of absorb those kinds of losses. So I think we're in a good position, going forward. And of course, if you remember back in 2013 and 2012 too, my first couple of years here, we were in a similar situation. We were burning through a lot of Section 8 money. We were leasing more units than we were being funded for. And what we did, we basically brought our leasing in line with the funding. That's how we had the end of 2013 and most of 2014, we had a pretty sizable profit. And we're gonna have to, it looks like, do a similar thing for this year, where we're gonna bring down the leasing amount, some to tie back to the funds that we're receiving. Because at this point now, which is different than when we had this problem in 2013, we've used a lot of our reserves, and that was HUD's purpose. But the cash reserves that we hold, we've gone through a lot of them, or HUD has taken a lot of them, so we need to be a little bit more cautious with the dollars that we have left. So unfortunately, that will likely mean fewer families. Going forward, we'll see assistance. Now, we won't be making any cuts. We're not going to push anybody off the program, but naturally, as we talked before, we have about a 5 to 10 voucher attrition rate, and we'll use that to our advantage to kind of bring our costs down down to where our revenues are. And we're working with HUD to try and get those back up or see what needs to be done. And when those obviously come back, we'll kind of turn that around and start to lease up some more.
If they come back.
Yeah, it's always the if. Yeah.
It's hard for us, I guess, to foresee the future in a sense, but how many, do you have a feel of going forward every year, are we gonna have to dip more into our reserves? And my understanding is, that's probably gonna be the case, and especially, with elections coming up in a couple of years, if another party decides to take over. Of course, Mitt Romney wants to do away with HUD when he turned around and was running for president, so we don't know what's gonna happen. But it appears to me that there's a continual bleeding of our reserves intensely, in a sense.
Yeah. I think, from my point of view, and just from what I've seen industry-wide, number one, housing authorities nationwide we've kind of prepared ourselves for this by hoarding resources. And HUD was fine with that for a while, because they could still get away with not giving us money because we had the resources. Now, they've come after the resources that we've set aside. Really, it's an intentional attempt to make housing authorities, one, very efficient. Two, long term, it's been discussed that the public housing program in and of itself entirely will be kind of shifted away from. I mean, that it does appear that if you look 20 years down the road, we're not going to have public housing at all. Basically, the properties that we own will turn into Section 8 properties, where we'll either do a RAD conversion and sell them off to the private market, or we'll just operate them as Section 8 units, and we'll receive the residents in them will receive vouchers that they can use to go wherever they choose. In the near term, you're looking at the next 5 years, I think what you'll find is there will be a leveling off point. It's not going to be I think it'll be a little less than we are now. I think, most housing authorities are going to need to be down to the breaking point before they level off and say, this is the level of funding that's appropriate. And I think for us, what ends up happening is you have some years, like it looks like this year is going to be where your funding is going down. You have other years where the funding is stable, and you need to find a balance in between that, and that's going to be the new normal for the housing authority. So, I like the number of 800 vouchers. It seems about the number that we can really consistently lease, and deal with the fluctuations. Because if we get much above 800, when the cash gets cut, we're bleeding a lot of money up front, and then it takes us a little while to get down to that point. I would say, though, our biggest long-term concern is trying to find our own sense of self-sustainability, especially in the public housing program. I think the Section 8 program is one, it's structured such, it's the kind of way of the future. It's the future of affordable housing as far as the federal government's concerned. But that leaves us with I think the last assessment on the properties leaves us with almost $12 million worth of property that we own, that we need to figure out how to maintain and sustain that resource. So it's gonna be important for us to kind of take the time to figure that out, whether or not we want to find a private developer and sell off and just facilitate the affordable housing, or do we want to become sort of the private market facilitator of that? I mean, obviously, if we're looking at our own self-interest, it's for our own survival, so to speak, better that we maintain ownership of those properties because we then control the resource. Because if you look at a Section 8 program long-term, it becomes very easy to cut out the middleman. If we become a Section 8 only operation, we have a great Section 8 program, but at some juncture when HUD's starting to become even more efficient, then we say, okay, well, we pay housing authorities so that they can turn around and pay landlords, but we're the middleman in that situation where, somebody's gonna say, well, why don't we just pay the landlords directly like we do with Social Security, like we do with other benefit programs? So we're in a tough spot because, we need to figure out, one, how to deal in today's environment of shortening resources, but also how to kind of peek around the corner and figure out what is coming next and how we're going to kind of survive through that. And I think maintaining ownership of certain property allows us the ability to kind of survive that.
Seems to me that the upkeep of the properties is really important right now, because if it does move to a situation where, then those are taken off public housing and into Section 8, right, then, those, we need to take advantage of the money we're getting from HUD now to make sure that those properties are good, because if that starts to happen, then there's gonna be less money to really continue to fix up and repair and things like that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, the biggest component that we lose when that happens is the capital fund. And those are those reimbursement dollars that are set aside specifically for major improvements to our properties. And, when that's, for 2015, it's $1 million, basically. That's, to not have that, as in your back pocket to make these upgrades when a boiler goes out, and to make upgrades when something that's not under warranty fails, or when you need to fix all your windows. That's, like you said, that's something if we can deal with it now and get it under warranty for an extended period of time, that puts us at a little bit of ease, so that when those things come up later, or if this comes up, we're kind of prepared to deal with that.
What's the horizon? Is this like around the corner, or is this like the next generation of?
I will say that it wouldn't surprise me to see it during my career, to see the beginnings. HUD moves slow. I wouldn't expect them to just come up with a rule and say, oh yeah, we're gonna do this in 2020. It would take them that long to discuss it, but I would believe that during my career, it'll be something that housing needs to deal with. For this agency, I think it's important that we prepare, and I think both Commissioner Powell and Richard pointed out that taking the steps now to ease us into that if and when that happens 20 years down the road is an important step, because if we can get things that are warranted for 20 years, I know, we buy a lot of appliances and they come with 20-year warranties. Well, while it may seem insignificant now, 15 years from now, when that refrigerator breaks, or when that stove goes out, or when that boiler or water heater goes out, and it's still under a 20-year warranty, now we get a new one, and we don't have to worry about trying to scramble for dollars 15 years from now when we're, living on less money than we may be currently. Hopefully I'm wrong. Nothing would make me happier than to be absolutely wrong, but it just, nothing looks like that. HUD and public housing, affordable housing in general, a lot of the programs for low-income families are really the target of the cutbacks. Anytime the federal government is to make cuts, they always look at those programs. So, I wouldn't say it's a 5-year kind of thing, but I would think in the 20-year time span, 20 to 30 years, it's something we need to be prepared for.
And are we?
Right now, no. I could not tell you that we are. I think we're.
There's one of the things, like, I just came back from this referendum thing with West Aurora High School, and, one of the things that's so frustrating is, like, that building is, 50 years old, and in 20 years it's gonna be 70-year-old, and it's gonna need a new roof, So why didn't you guys start saving 20 years ago for this new roof that you need now? And now you're coming and asking for a loan, basically, from us. And if we're not gonna have that loan available, you know, in 20 years, you know, or 15 or 10, I just, yeah, I feel like, we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't start planning for that, you know.
And I will say, you know, not that this is any comfort, but the fact that we acknowledge that it's actually probably coming puts us somewhat ahead of the game in most agencies. A lot of agencies, you will find, spend this time advocating for more money. So, I mean, there's at least 4 or 5, you know, there's even, I think even one lawsuit out right now trying to force HUD to give you more money versus saying, okay, look, this is the reality of the world we're in. Let's figure out how to deal with this world and, like I said, deal with the world that's coming. So, you know, the conversations that we're gonna need to have over the next year or two and the actions we're gonna need to take do need to be intentional so that we are preparing ourselves, you know, for that future, whether it be looking at, you know, potentially taking out some of the equity in these properties and setting that aside for a rainy day, or making, like you said, large-scale improvements today, or taking part of that budget and saying, look, every year, from now until forever, we're gonna set aside $200,000 so that, if, you know, so that in 20 years, we've got a few $1 million set up for something that's gonna happen that we know is gonna happen. We know eventually.
Can we do that though without HUD taking it?
That's always a challenge. So we would have to, and that's part of that conversation. We'd have to figure out a mechanism by which we could save the money without saving the money, so to speak.
I think one of the things we need to do as a housing authority, not just here, but maybe network with other housing authorities, we need to sit down with our senators and congressmen and start talking to them about, you know, what's going on in the housing industry, because, you know, I don't think a lot of them have a clue, you know, for how we operate and you know, what happens in Congress turns around and affects us here in the housing authority. So, I mean, it's just something that thrown out there. I don't think it's a bad idea. In fact, at the conference, they were talking about that. You know, there's some conversations going on now about, you know, maybe collectively getting together and sitting down and doing
Is there lobbying that goes on in the
Yeah, I mean, there are 2 major groups that do lobbying for public housing authorities. It's the National Association of Redevelopment and Housing Organizations. It's NARO, and then FADA, the conference that Commissioner Powell went to. So they actually, there's a legislative conference in the spring sometime for NARO, and I think FADA also has one where they actually go, it's in Washington D.C., and they do schedule some time and try and meet with certain senators and politicians. So we do have lobbying groups. When I got here, it kind of there was a lawsuit out, or I guess it was a big advocacy thing out, where we were a bunch of housing authorities that got together nationwide and were suing or trying to force HUD through legal action to give us basically 100% of our operating subsidy. Because basically we've been funded at around 83% in that program the entire time I've been here. We were involved in that lawsuit. My only fear with a lawsuit, something of that nature that's so very explicit, you know, we were really trying to force legal action against HUD, is one, HUD really is at the mercy of Congress. So you're really attacking the wrong people, number one. And number two, not to say in any way that HUD's vindictive, but I just can't imagine they're really, you know, appreciative of that local housing authority that's also suing them, trying to call for assistance, you know.
Right.
So we actually backed out of that lawsuit when I got here. I just didn't see it as at that time as the right thing to do. I think it was positioned wrong. Again, I don't think HUD's the problem. I think they're in the middle just like we are, because their budget gets slashed just as much. And then what happens is their budget gets set by Congress. They take what they receive and allocate it for their various programs. We just happen to be one of those various programs. So if they get 90%, so do we. I don't, you know, I could be wrong, but I don't think that they're the bad guy in the situation. I think really what we need, and not that I'm some kind of policy guy, but I think what would be more beneficial is if HUD and the housing industry got together and went to Congress and said, look, we need this money. There's a number going around. I think it's a $45 billion backlog in capital improvements needed in our business. To the overall Congress, it's not a lot of money. It's $45 billion. We spend $45 billion on tons of things in this country and don't think about it. So, I mean, but that one-time influx would solve most of housing's problems in the short term. But it's just a matter of, again, you know, like I said, a lot of the groups do advocacy. I'm a little afraid of lawsuits sometimes. If you don't win, you know what happens. But not to say, again, you know, that certainly we need to support that advocacy.
Got a budget question, or not housing and then the section 8 and then the administrative costs. And then I know that ultimately it all gets kind of swept together and it's still not all enchilada. Have you ever broken down the administrative costs to try to really figure out which chunk goes to which section? Because we say on paper that like the public housing's very profitable and the section 8's more of like a break even. But I wonder when you do it, when you take the outlay cost, is it really the case?
That actually does still stand up, obviously not as much. Public housing does tend to take the bulk of our administrative resources. And that's another part of that argument about which program is more efficient. Public housing utilizes a lion's share of our resources, of all the administrative costs, all the overhead, the maintenance staff, the administrative staff. Section 8 is a very, I don't want to say easy, because it's not easy, but I would say it's a very efficient program to run. We do very specific things. Public housing, because we are the owner and landlord and the government operator, there's just more that has to happen, both behind the scenes and in front of the camera, so to speak. So, what you would find, I think, and we do have to report it this way. We report it out actually by AMP and by program. There isn't a reporting for the central office. All of that has to be broken out and sent out to HUD, so they are aware. But at the end of the day, I think the public housing program still makes a much smaller problem, around $50,000 a year. Section 8 program still pretty much breaks even. Actually, one of the things, we obviously every year we shift the financial statement presentation a little bit, because I know there have been some presentation questions in how it's shown this year. So I think one of the things, once we get into our new fiscal year in April, we may kind of simplify the presentation so that it answers that question a little more directly every month. So you don't have, because I know right now you're looking at it, says, okay, the central office spent $157,000, where in this picture does it go? So we may remove that category and simply say, this is what public housing spent, this is what Section 8 spent. That way you don't have to try and figure out what went where, and it's still in the report, the numbers still tie out the same, but that way it's a little more direct as to how the programs are performing. And then we'll line items with, let's say like overhead costs or something, so you can tell which part is the central office, but that way it's in the programs, you're not trying to figure out what goes where.
Different question, we talked about maybe the number of vouchers next year being adjusted down to make that more financially work with the current funding.
Mm-hmm.
How does the Brinshore requirements and HUD requirements to bring those online, how does that kind of mix into the whole thing? Does that mean that those would come online and then actually even more of the other vouchers go offline to make the numbers work, or is that two pools of money?
Well, it's the same pool of money. What we would end up doing is again trying to use attrition to balance that number out.
So I guess what I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking 50 houses come on that have to have a site voucher attached to it. You were already going to take 20 out. Does that mean we got to take 70 out now? Because
in theory, yes, we will need to make that adjustment for those vouchers as they come online. And that was initially when we got into this, we weren't in this funding environment, so it made more sense. We actually brought our number down to accommodate for them. So there has been some room made for them, but then the funding came down even more, and that was just unexpected. So we will need to actually adjust again for the new funding environment that we're in. Initially, when we got down to 800, we were at the point we were ready to have all 40 come online, and we'd still been more than able to fund them. When HUD came even lower with the funding, that kind of forces us into kind of a secondary adjustment.
So, and again, that just means that when a voucher becomes available, we don't reissue it?
Right, yeah, if somebody comes off, we just won't release that voucher.
But we keep it, like, if we wanted it?
Yeah, it's our voucher, we don't give it away, we just won't be using it.
Yeah, I didn't know if you don't use it, you lose it, or something like that.
I mean, in this situation, say we have 893 vouchers, we could use every last one of them if we wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So we would still have it available. If say somebody walked in here and gave us $1 million, we could immediately lease those vouchers up, be no problem at all.
hear that, we paid a vendor for, with, Ross Grant Renewal.
Mhm.
That program is now, it's like a second,
Third year, last year, yeah. So we brought on a consultant to help us actually reapply for the grant. I wasn't here when we did the original application, but I do understand we're using a consultant at that time too. So we brought somebody on who could help us reapply for that grant. It's just it's an expertise that, because it's a self-sufficiency grant, there are certain, milestones you need to be able to write out and explain. So we thought it best to bring in somebody who has that specialty.
No, we're gonna renew for what, another 3 years?
3 years, yeah. As long as we get the grant, we're doing like 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, the challenge, this is the last year, we didn't wanna run out and not have tried to reapply for the grant. Any other questions on the, list of bills?
I did.
Yes, sir.
The landscaping company and bills for sod, and I was just wondering how that, is that right?
Oh, okay, so.
I was
Eh,
wondering how we do that.
No, and Carlos isn't here because he can explain it a little bit better. We've been doing a lot of preparing, a lot of the side work is later built, so it's stuff that we did earlier in the year that we can build for now. But we also, as we mentioned before, we did a soccer field out in the back corner over there we're gonna lease to the township. So actually it's kind of an investment for the spring. Once the snow thaws, we're actually gonna should have a well-fed soccer field, 6 soccer fields over there. And the township's gonna lease them from us for a long-term lease.
Okay. Sorry, I got a few more.
No, not a problem.
So there's a bill for asbestos removal.
Mhm.
So do we, as a board, like when we have an expenditure like at that level, I know the board approves it at payment, but we don't approve those types of things up front, or how's that work?
Well, here's what I would say, and it's gonna sound a little self-serving, but I would say no. Reason being, it becomes a day-to-day operational decision, so we needed to do the asbestos abatement, so let's get it done. Here's a bill, I think it was $150,000, something like that. There are a number of things that come up that in the course of a month that may cost that much money. For example, if we were to lose one of the heating units at Maple Terrace, we need to spend that kind of money, and I don't want to have to call a board meeting just to get a boiler back online. I mean, that's something,
I wasn't trying to go down that road, I was just
Oh, no.
trying to understand kind of process-wise how,
In general, what we do, we put out either an RFP or a bid. There's a procurement process for any expenditure depending on the amount. So we either go through an RFP where we actually go out to bid and somebody comes in with that, or if it's an emergency, we go out for quotes. We have to get a minimum number of quotes, usually 3, but sometimes it's more. That way, we try to get the best possible price. But the procedure for anything like that is that we have to actually go out to bid for pretty much anything. We can't, under no circumstances can we just say, okay, we're gonna pick this guy or this company and be done with it. We always have to do a procurement for them. And those are HUD mandated, we don't really have a choice in the matter. When they do our audit, they check to make sure that we have files. David keeps a file on every procurement that we do. So HUD does check to make sure that those are done the way they should be. Are there any other questions on the list of bills?
In that case, we'll move on to monthly staff reports.
So as we've discussed, and we are working diligently to improve our REACT score from last year. I want to give a lot of credit to Jimmy's team and Carlos's team now, where they've gone through really unit by unit. We have now a REACT inspector. We've talked about this, where he's gone into every unit, and now there are 2 guys following behind him, really repairing the work, and then maintenance is coming behind them and ensuring that we're keeping it up. So now we've created a process by which it's really a kind of, you want to call it like a 360 process, where somebody's doing an inspection, there are people behind that person that do the immediate repairs, and then maintenance is following up to maintain and make sure that the units are staying in good condition. What we found, we've been able to run through essentially an entire property in a matter of weeks, and now we're just moving on to the next property. It's been a very efficient process, and we've been able to find things that, again, we wouldn't have known unless we went into the unit. And that's always been the challenge with REACT, is that if somebody doesn't call, so if a resident doesn't say this is broken or this doesn't work, we don't know to go in the unit and fix it. And this way, we actually get FaceTime in every unit. We make a list of all the things that need corrected, and we get a checklist that shows that these were all corrected on this date, and we're gonna do that for every single unit at every property. And in that course, I think the numbers that we saw, we could probably do that 2 or 3 times a year. So every unit will have 3 visits 3 times a year, or every unit will have 3 visits. Sorry, no, yeah, and 3 times a year, so it's 9 visits basically, where we're in there and we're just kind of perusing, just making sure things are kept up. That way, if residents maybe, I'm not saying they're ignoring it, but they may have forgotten or may not have been that big a deal at the time. A hole in the wall, say, oh yeah, my kid hit the door, there's a hole in the wall. It's not the end of the world. You would move on from that. But for us to now know, because we were there, we saw it, we can fix it, it doesn't become a REAC issue, and we hopefully will have much higher scores as a result of that. As we talking on the Renshaw project came up, there have been now a few new potential projects that have come up, and of course, we always look at those potential projects, and we're having a few meetings here. There are a few projects that developers do want to bring to Aurora, and we have been very open and kind of open those discussions. So I know I have a meeting tomorrow with the developer. Renshaw came around and wanted to talk about the second phase and some ways that they want to do that. Rick and I have kind of maintained a dialogue on some opportunities development-wise that may make sense for vouchers, may make sense for other kinds of housing, and do fit, I think, into our overall scheme of having a tiered housing structure and of seeking out opportunities in some of the opportunity areas in the community, in the city. So just, there will be time probably within the next couple months where we may need to have some of those discussions as a board. And right now it's just all preliminary discussions. I know there's some buildings downtown that are being looked at, and buildings other places in town too. So we are, again, kind of like always encouraging and trying to partner with the city, with developers on those opportunities. I don't know, a few months ago, I won't say back in maybe September, October, the board approved the sale of a few properties that have been offline for almost 2-3 years now. And we actually sold the first one, the other 2 we're still trying to get sold. So the duplex we had on Bowditch sold for $55,000, which was a good price for us. We were kind of surprised and pleased that we got that offer. So we actually closed on that last week. Sold it to AID, so they're going to use it to house some of their families. So it's still, even in disposing of properties, we've been able to really further our mission and help individuals who may otherwise not be able to get housing, be able to afford housing. So I think even in the sale of our property and in disposition, one of the things HUD is always concerned with is when we're getting rid of properties, what happens to them, what are they going to be used for? And this didn't go to a speculator or an investor. It went to a group that's going to help individuals. I think that's always a big plus for us. It's kind of a feel-good thing when we get to do something like that as well. And then finally, you guys got the budget, I want to say Friday, and I think yesterday, was it yesterday? You guys got the year-over-year comparisons. So everything is kind of laid out there. Obviously, I'm sure you guys will have questions. What we wanted to do was get it out to you prior to today's meeting, and then that gives you time to digest everything in there. We'll want to have probably some individual meetings between now and next board meeting where we just sit down, either as a group or individually, and we can go over any questions that you have.
Oh, okay. So we're not approving that tonight?
No, absolutely not. No. You need way more time than a few days to review that. I mean, that's a pretty big document. And don't get me wrong, as much as that would make things very easy for me, I don't think that's a good use of the board, really. I mean, I think it's important that because I think I have great ideas, but I mean, as we've seen, as it's building evidence, sometimes it's good to have other separate sets of eyes look at things and make suggestions. So, no, we want you guys to have time to take a look, shoot me questions, or set up a meeting. We'd be more than happy to go through anything. Any questions from me? No? Yeah.
All right, at the top there, you see your public housing waiting list information, including the ready-to-house pool. Those numbers, you'll also see the notices that were served, the 10, 14, and 30 day. We did have a total of 10 attorney referrals. We had a total of 4 evictions. And then down towards the middle there, you see the Section 8 and the project-based waiting list numbers. We continue to work with property managers, RUSH program to bring different programs. You'll see on there we recently met with the Cobb County Urban League and partnership with some of the programs that they're doing. And at the bottom there's some of the activities going on at the different sites.
Are there any questions from
Is that number right, the 14-day notices?
we don't always evict that many people, so it's, you know.
I've got a question. We have, what, 70 families that moved out during the month. When these people move out, do they owe us any money?
Sometimes they do, yeah.
They tear out the apartment.
Do we try to
Collect the money?
collect?
Yes, absolutely. And that kind of goes with the
Right,
resolution,
right,
yeah.
right.
So, and we'll talk about this a little bit more at the resolution, but yes, we do, make every effort, we're required, and we do make every effort to collect. We send all of, anybody who leaves the agency with the balance, we send that to a collections agency, and then if they were to collect, I think we get like 75% of that, their fee is 25%. On top of that, there's a system that we use called EIV. So, it's a nationwide system that basically tracks income and expenses, but anytime a family leaves, the housing authority leaves owing a balance, we note that in the system and it prevents them from being able to get housing assistance any place else in the country.
Yes.
And if they pay us, they have to pay us in order to be able to move them. There is another thing we're trying to do with the state. I just found this out. I was at at the Hispanic Heritage breakfast, and I met with Christina Mancini. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She's with the state treasurer's office, or the controller's office, and she was telling me there's a program by which any individual who owes a state or federal agency money, when they get their tax returns, that will automatically be taken out of their tax returns and paid to the agency. So we have to enroll, and it's a bit of a process to enroll, but we've already kind of started that enrollment process, let me verify and all that, but we do definitely want to be in that. She's mentioned that, a lot of agencies, you might not see anything all year long, but tax time, you'll get, you'll start to see some of those dollars roll in, because they're just taking it right out of the tax returns and sending it to you. So that's definitely something we want to get involved in.
Do they do that on vendor collections for prank companies?
No.
That's pretty sweet.
That is sweet.
Are there any other questions for Maria? No, sir?
Okay, for the Section 8 program for January, we had 93 research that we were working on. We completed 51 annual reexaminations, 64 interim rent adjustments. We reissued 4 vouchers for families moving whose leases ended. We had 6 families who ported in and were issued vouchers. We had 2 families that we moved out to other housing authorities. 10 lease-ups, 10 initial inspections, move-in inspections, 51 annual inspections, 21 re-inspections, 1 special inspection, which was a 24-hour for a missing smoke detector. We had 1 termination because the family became self-sufficient. We had signed 2 repayment agreements, one for $3,941 and one for $482. We have right now a total of 798 vouchers leased. And we had some quality control inspections conducted in January also by a contractor that had contracted with 37 of our properties. That's it. Any questions?
Do we get a report back from those inspectors and?
They sent us an email on those.
That's just a private individual's house, and they just schedule a
They sent
inspection
the
for
letters
it.
out to the landlord and to the tenant that they were coming to do.
And then part of the deal, they just have to let them in.
Yes.
Any other questions for Sue?
Maybe I missed that last part. Do you get reports back from those or
They
no?
sent us an email of all the, yes, I think we had like 12 reports.
They came back with something
Mhm.
that needed to be done.
And actually, they were kind of minimal, I thought. Some had missing light bulbs in the vanity in the bathroom and,
Then do they send somebody out to re-inspect, or is that our
it was up to
job?
us then to contact the owner and make sure that they were done.
Any other questions for Sue?
Well, at this time of year with the snow and frigid temperatures, top priority is always the had a higher than usual amount of vacancies, so, and we have several more anticipated. So we decided to make some adjustments, and although we've been utilizing our contractors and stuff, decided to, assign 3 guys, 3 maintenance mechanics to be strictly assigned to do just only vacancies. In the past, I'd have to pull them out to do work orders, but now they'll be strictly just concentrating on doing the vacancies. As Ms. Gregory said, guys are doing real great on the pre-react inspection. It's cut down a lot on the work orders, which really helps out, especially now that I have to assign several guys to strictly vacancies. And then, Lenny, our new inventory specialist, has been doing an outstanding job. He just kind of fit right in. We didn't think we'd be able to replace Lewis, but, we've been meeting with vendors and just sit down with them and see, kind of go over our inventory and just kind of, see what kind of pricing we can get and quality material. And a lot has to do with our delivery time. We want to try to cut down some of our delivery time and some of our bigger items so that, like cabinets and stuff like that are, we completed 6 vacancy turnarounds. Inspections were done for Centennial House for the fire alarms, and backflow testing was done both at Centennial and Maple Terrace.
Any questions for Jim?
Being none, we'll move on to new business. Resolution 1502, approval of write-off of 2014 bad debts.
So, and we've done this kind of once a year where we kind of go back and just look at any item that's over 90 days that we that we feel we're not going to collect. And HUD requires that we have board approval as opposed to just allowing us write-offs, because that can get a little funny if you do that. So this is just that, this year actually was a lot higher than we've normally had. Normally we've had a number somewhere between $25,000 and $65,000 as a write-off. This one, for some reason, has been a little higher, and I think some of it has to do with the local economy. I think it's been a little difficult for people, and as you've noticed, we've had a lot more evictions recently than we have had kind of historically. I think normally we're dealing somewhere in the 2-3 evictions, where now we're processing basically everybody that owes us money, and that's kind of industry wide. It's not just us that's making that step to process more, because frankly, we look at it as, we're seeing less dollars from HUD, so we can't absorb the cushion of people not paying as much, anymore. So we've kind of processed more evictions. So I think, though this number is high, I think we'll see numbers closer. I don't think we'll see a number this high regularly. I think it'll stay, kind of situated about $75,000 a year. But it is something that we do have to come to the board for approval to write these off. Just because we write them off does not mean that we're through attempting to collect. We actually take the entire amount, the entire list of individuals that, like I said before, we put those in our EIV system so that those individuals can't receive assistance elsewhere. But we also send them to a collections agency. And, from time to time we do see, good portions of the money back. I mean, obviously some people get to a point where they're trying to fix their credit or make amends, make clean, whatever else they're trying to do. But we do from time to time see chunks of the money come back to us. So we are looking for an approval of bad debts.
So moved.
I second.
Been motion and seconded. Any questions? Discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hello, excuse me. We're supposed to be getting a new management of Teresa Craft coming back in. There's a petition going on.
Give me one more. We're not at that point. We can talk after the meeting. Give me
Well,
1 second though.
I kind of wanted to do it in front of the board because it's.
Just give me some. We'll adjourn, and then they'll still be here. You can do. I'm not gonna let you not do it. Don't worry.
Okay,
Don't worry.
thank you.
I got you. Don't worry.
'Cause I'm not feeling too good either.
executive session today? In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
If you all would be so kind, ma'am.
Well, there's concerns going around the building about, Teresa Kraft coming back,
What building?
at Maple Terrace. With her coming back, there's been so many times there's a whole petition going on. Maple Terrace does not want her back as like even temporary management of when Tequila leaves this Friday.
We're losing an angel.
Like it's a petition that's going around, and it's crazy for her to even come back. All the stuff that's been going on, she just recently got in trouble. Also, she shouldn't be back in that building. That would be bad news. Her coming back in there with partying with residents, sleeping around with tenants. It's a number of stuff, and it's a whole petition. It'll be filled out by the end of the week, but there's a lot of new people, which they're not signing the petition, and that's right and only fair, but it's not a good judgment of her coming back to management this building. It's not just me. It's like, I've got quite a few signatures, and
we'll take, certainly, when you have the petition, just either give it to Maria or bring it to the office here. But also, just so I think everybody's clear, we really haven't made or announced any decision one way or the other as to who's going to be where. The residents will find out once we make that decision, but Maria and I haven't made that decision yet.
okay. Well, I was just bringing it to the attention, and there is actually mold around the building.
Mhm.
Like, we're breathing that in every day, and it's right in the community room. There's mold, it's on the ceiling, it's on the wall, and it's not right, and then also the fire vents. That's a hazard because, nobody has gotten in, deep into them vents in quite a long time, and, I've been through a home fire, and, that is such a hazard. They have not cleaned the inside, and the weatherization thing, the Z, he came with a roll of tape.
Was it like a really thick roll?
I was like, when he came to the door with, cause I actually had snow and stuff inside my window. So when I called for the weatherization thing to help, he came really with tape. I was like, no, I'm really good with tape. I'm like, and then he's like, no, I'll at least seal it up. And I'm like, well, I'm turned to the stove and I'm like, God, please just give me patience for this man.
Let's look at this. You've got his boss here.
He is doing things like around the building. He put up a cardboard there was a hole in the wall, and he put up a cardboard, and not only he took time to nail up the cardboard up there, but he painted it. He took his time to literally paint it. You know what I mean? And Z is like, I'm just annoyed when I see him. But besides everything else, the whole building is there's a lot of percent that don't want Teresa back. But I'm just saying, the fire, that is a very hazard, and just the mold. We're breathing that in every day.
Z is he's a good maintenance man. It's just that.
Well, her opinion against mine, because he
let's-
must have not brought tape to your door. There's pictures of it.
No, I'm not. I don't want to.
Take it easy.
I'm good. I'm good. Kinda. My stomach is rumbling, but.
Well, let's do this. We got to get you some dinner. We got to get you out here so you can get some. But if you want to let Jimmy know all of the issues that you have, and Maria too, so that you guys can, because Maria had, as far as the property manager issues, let her know, because she's going to be the one ultimately responsible for who ends up in that position. And then your maintenance concerns, let Jimmy know, and Jimmy has no problem coming out to the site if he needs, so I'll come if I need to.
Okay.
To see and address those.
Don't even want him, if there is something to break, don't even want him to come and fix it in my unit. This is the third time, and I'm like, oh my God. It was a piece of tape, and there's a picture, and it's just ridiculous by now. I look at Z and I laugh, just because it's like a joke. And the people on this petition, they are really thinking about Teresa retaliating because she calls herself the eviction queen, there's a lot of things that's going on, and but like the mold thing, that is really serious, and it's right in the community room. And when it was a proposal brought up about fixing and going around the building and doing stuff and fixing holes and like mold, and you know what I'm saying, it's not being fixed. I'm living there. I'm one of the residents. I've been there now a year. I'm in good standards. I have always been in good standards. I have not been late on my rent once. Was almost a little trouble that I was almost into, but
Almost doesn't count. Almost doesn't
no, okay, but almost was kind of counting because they were trying to, but the girl had put her hands on me first. You know what I mean? And so there was a fight like a year ago over,
You don't want to tell us that. You don't want to tell us that.
I'm just saying.
Well, like I said,
We're really here because we didn't want Teresa back.
Okay.
There's a lot
That-
of us
that is
that
the main
don't want her.
reason.
That's
Okay.
the main reason.
And have that conversation, like I said, with Maria, so that we
We
can.
don't have, I don't
Or
hate
if you have
Teresa
the
or anything.
conversation,
She's a good paperwork person, but she's not a good people person speaking wise.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason I'm here.
Not a problem.
I don't have nothing against her, but I wouldn't want her back. And
It's filling off.
the lady we have now, she's an angel, and we're gonna miss her dearly because since that lady's been in our building, to be honest with you, Mr. Gregory, it's been nice and smooth.
Yep.
Of course, she's have some convention because a lot of people don't wanna pay their rent or they're late, and, that's always gonna be, some people are responsible and some people ain't. But this lady that's leaving, we're gonna miss her dearly, and I wish that you guys hire somebody just as good as her.
Yeah.
Do the best
She's
that
a
you
good
can.
people person, she understands, she speaks well to us, she's very intelligent.
Goes and listens
And
to every side if anything's happening.
We're just
She's
scared,
good.
we're really scared that if Teresa
lives
comes
good.
back, a lot of us, I'll probably take the streets. I will leave the building if she does come back, cause I'm not scared of her, I'm just frightened of what she can do to us, because there's a lot of issue that she does and nobody sees it. Their cameras don't focus on her, they focus on us. And because we're low income, we're supposed to be the underground ones, and we're not. There's a lot of us that are intelligent living there. And my apartment is immaculate. The day I leave, you're gonna get your apartment the same way you gave it to me.
Yep, mine's good
Of course,
too.
there's some people that don't do that, but I will, because I'm fortunately that, to be under a roof.
Well, that's how she announced herself anyway, is she's the eviction queen, and just, there's a lot of people that just don't temporarily even want her back. Not
That's
even
why we're here, if
temporarily.
not, we wouldn't even be here, because I
We
just,
appreciate you making the trip, especially in the winter.
I called you a
Yeah.
couple
Yes, you
times,
did,
and
yes,
I
you
know
did.
you've probably been
No,
busy.
and me and Marie were talking about it this afternoon. She was gonna call you, but you showed up, so.
Yeah, well, I needed to see you in person, so.
No, not a problem. Thank you.
But,
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Sorry to bring in this way.
Is it a report of someone you want?
Well, the tiles though, you have a good night.
Just some,
You guys also,
Yeah,
hi.
you guys can be on your own.
Okay.
I'm sorry I'm talking about your
And then,
friend.
did you bring this one
but-
back too?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Teresa.
And with all this?
All this stuff, yeah, all this
Sure.
stuff, with those they had out there.
And this was.
But
this
really,
was
no, the
information from
building,
someone else.
they
No,
do
that's-
not
that's-
want her back at all.
Okay.
Like, there's a lot of concerns that's going on about this, like, and she's got some, she's gotta be, I'm just saying this as me freely because this is me. No, I'm just saying, if, she's got a lot of bad comments on here, you know what I mean? And when you live your life and then that's how, what if she was
Guidelines
to
and
pass
puts
away, wait, God forbid, you know what I'm saying? How she's remembered.
Yeah.
You know, like in real life, you don't wanna be
And then
remembered
this is
like
just-
this. This is
Yeah.
horrible. Like she's got like comments like she's the devil. Like, my God, I'm just saying.
When was the?
That's what, January?
We can set up a time.
That's probably what it is last week.
Thank you so much.
You guys have a good day. I'm sorry if I bothered anybody. Y'all have a good night. It's good seeing you, Miss Lady.
Alright. It's fine.
You guys have a good night. Drive safe because it's starting to get out there. The weather is starting to go, you guys.
So when can we?
I better go in the kitchen and get my.
Say goodnight.
I'll stay with you.
All right, thanks. Not that we're aware.
But here's what I would say.
My only thing is like, why does it just have, there's someone at the building that says his job?
Because
Why does it take someone
what
from
happens
that?
sometimes is there are things that look
Old like substances?
exactly.
That's a home inspection.
Yeah, no, we, no, as far as we're aware, we have guys in there, not just us, I mean, the insurance company is just in there, you know, the city goes in there, there was more of those. But again, that's not to say we can't, I mean, maybe we didn't know, we missed it, and they came and told us, so we'll go, and Jimmy's gonna make us
They
go.
cancel snow for the.
That's something, it would surprise me if it was.
Yeah, no, that's fine, I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, yeah, we would try our best not to have that, this is the goal.
I would agree.
I bought another box of these from,
In town quickly.
from Charles, you know, so those are-
You open it?
No, I just got some, and he just,
10 or 12 snow days this year, all of them for like an inch less.
See you guys.
Bye, Rick. Bye, Rick.
Because, hey,
How are you? I gotta go.
okay, yeah, I gotta.
You can, this is something wrong.
Yeah, tomorrow's good. I blocked the whole day off for this Greentown conference.
Mobile devices.
Oh, so I've got
Because I wanted
like
to,
3 things that I was gonna
get some
have to
copies
do.
for it and stuff.
I'll have windows.
I'll send you a text, let me know when you're free, and I'll give you a call. It's just a couple things maybe I'm not understanding and wanna get your guys' point of
Well, I
view.
need to get your point of view too, because I don't know what all the, I don't know the downsides. I
Yeah,
gotta-
yeah, there were just some questions that I asked, I didn't really get the answer I was looking
And I
for.
know.
So we'll talk about it
Belinda
tomorrow.
works. I saw her
Yeah.
whole weekend. She had the TST.
We should be able to connect
Then she goes.
tomorrow.
And
Not
I heard
not necessarily a big hurry, I see there. We don't need to, I mean, I know like Robin's under,
I didn't see
you know, she's trying to
I don't think
get more housing authorities on board, but,
was my face.
um,
You know what I mean?
yeah, if it
But
goes
I
into
listened
next
to her
week
all
too, or
weekend,
whatever.
Because she's worked with the
Okay.
client.
But yeah, we can try to connect tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Right.
Thanks,
We
Rick.
probably should, so that, because otherwise,
No,
the
no one has contacted me.
just wanna have a.
Thanks, Rick.
Alright, yeah, so shoot me a text.
All right.